there was an article in the Sunday New York Times, and it was entitled, let me just get this up so I have it here. It was entitled, How the Rubin Museum is Teaming Up with Buddhism to Help Visitors Adjust Their Perspectives. And this exhibit is a really immersive, interactive, experiential step into Buddhism. And the writer was describing one room where there are these two plastic transparent cylinders, big cylinders. And there are two questions. And if you answer yes to these questions, you put a little chip or a little disc into one of the cylinders. Are you ready for the question? Have you ever thought you were better than anyone else? Have you ever thought you were better than everyone else? Worse than everyone else? Better, worse? And the writer expressed a sense of relief at how many cylinders, discs were in these containers. Both were filled. Both were filled. There is I'm going to share with you 4 lines of a poem from Rudyard Kipling entitled If. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same. If. I think it speaks to a maturity about how we meet experiences in our lives, and it speaks to what we are practicing and learning. I feel a sense of comfort that we experience these wins, and I can hear Susan's voice saying, nothing personal here. We know that they blow through us, they blow around us, and we can be blown over by them. And then we have to find our grounding and find our stability, come back to some balance when these winds have passed or when they have calmed down. And they can be extreme. The winds can be subtle. I think that one of the reasons we practice and make a commitment to practice, it's one of the reasons I do, is so that I can become a little more aware of the subtle breezes. Like you might feel that undercurrent of shame, or you might feel that undercurrent of entitlement. Whoa, I didn't even know that was here. Sometimes we can use bigger, dramatic examples as a way to see what might be true for us in a less dramatic way. And I am a Ken Burns fan. I am, every time I watch one of his documentaries, I learn something about something that I had no idea about. And I believe this is one of the great gifts of film and of the other arts, because they can just shift our lens through which we see. And they can help us to view someone, something, even ourselves a little differently. So whether it's the Civil War or jazz or national public parks, Ken Burns doesn't dwell on the trivial matters. But a couple of months ago, I watched a documentary on Muhammad Ali. And maybe some of you saw this documentary. I'm not a boxing fan, and I really didn't know much about him. But as I watched this film, it was quite moving. And I don't see him in the same light that I saw him before I watched this film. When he was 18 years old, he won an Olympic gold medal for boxing in Rome. And he said he held on to that medal. He would not take it off for 48 hours. He slept with that gold medal. And then he returned home, and home was in Louisville, Kentucky. He went to a restaurant, and he was not served because of the color of his skin. He said he was so enraged that he went out and threw his medal into the Ohio River. A rejection of the hypocrisy of our nation's white system of values. The achievement was co-opted by our nation. The person was not valued. These were some of his first reactions to the winds of fame. And I think we can think about those ways we confuse achievement with our personal value, or confuse our failures with our personal value. Now, talk about ego. He was a big personality. He was brash and arrogant, defiant, boastful. I'm the greatest. I know I'm even greater than the greatest. He just flaunted that. What those qualities that we work so mindfully not to display, or so mindfully to try to transform. And he was known for his social message of Black pride and Black resistance to white domination, and for refusing induction to the United States Army during the Vietnam War. Now, many viewed this as shameful, unpatriotic, and cowardly. He changed his name, he renounced Christianity, and he embraced Islam. And in 1967, he was convicted of draft evasion and sentenced to 5 years in prison, fined $10,000, and banned from boxing for, I think it was 3 to 4 years. And he was stripped of his title. The scene I wanna highlight was after that ban was lifted. And he entered a fight with Joe Frazier for the heavyweight title. These men fought with everything they had. It may have been the most important sporting event of the decade, and some people say it was the most important sporting event of that century. It was a big deal because neither of those men had lost a professional fight, and people all over the world were watching this. The pubs were open really early in the morning in England, and people were crowding the stadiums to watch those circuit TVs in cold, cold winter. And soldiers, there were pictures of soldiers just huddled around their small radios listening to this fight. Well, Joe Frazier won the fight that night. And he could not walk off out of the ring by himself. He lost his capacity to urinate, and he was hospitalized for 10 days. Now, Ali was also had to go to the hospital. But they wanted him to stay the night, but he went, nope. He did not want to give Joe Frazier the satisfaction, the gratification of knowing that he had been hurt. And of course, we know this. I don't want you to see how hurt I was by your words, by your rejection. I don't want you to see how vulnerable I was. We know this. Ali was interviewed the next day and he didn't have any of that brashness, or maybe it was a few days after. And he was asked this question: how does it feel to have lost the only professional fight you ever lost? And he paused and he said, I'm just a man who lost a fight. And it's important for me to accept this with some dignity so that when other people watching lose their fights, they can handle it with some dignity too. Well, imagine how this feels. And we all know, because we've suffered blows to our self-esteem, to a sense of who we are. And there's something so poignant about this, about those moments when we just touch into our vulnerability and humility, where everything else just falls away. It doesn't matter. While losing is painful, it can be a great gift. And of course, that vulnerability made him even more beloved. He was just not that invincible, mean fighting machine, the greatest who floats like a butterfly and stings like a bee. He was very human. Losing stings. Decades later, Ali was asked to carry the flame, the Olympic torch, and he had been living with Parkinson's. His hands were shaking. This was a moving image. His hand is shaking as he carries the torch that represents, that symbolizes that spirit, that effort to be the best, to be excellent. He exposed the physical deterioration, and it was a moment of triumph. Can we remember? Can we keep ourselves from forgetting our goodness, no matter what we achieve or how we might fail? Can we remember and keep ourselves from forgetting that goodness, dignity, strength, and spaciousness beyond what we achieve and beyond all of our failings? I think we do this by practicing. So thank you for listening, and let's practice together.